On today's show, Damian Lillard's agent is trying to talk to teams that aren't the Heat out of trading for Damian Lillard. We talk about if he's going to get his way and get to Miami. Then we take a look at the offseason do-nothingers. What teams hurt themselves the most by doing nothing this offseason? Finally, Victor Wembanyama makes his Summer League debut. All of that and much more coming up on today's Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. I'm Wes Goldberg here with Adam Mares. However you might be tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app. Thanks so much for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. We'll talk about which teams have hurt themselves the most this offseason in a minute, but let's begin with the latest on Damian Lillard, whose agent Aaron Goodwin, according to ESPN, is calling teams that aren't the Heat and telling them not to trade for his client. Meanwhile, the Trailblazers are communicating that they aren't satisfied with the Heat's trade offer. And so what we have here, Adam, is a good old-fashioned stalemate. What do you make of Goodwin and Lillard's position?
What I make of it is I don't like it. I'm like one of these guys that is opposed to this type of Damian Lillard has been very loyal and has branded himself as such to Portland, and I tip my hat to him for it. I don't know that builds up the goodwill to force your way to a team after signing a long extension and committing to this long-term deal and then saying immediately, well, I want to go and I'm only going to go to one team, suppressing your value or depressing your value, and then, leaving your team, in this case, the Trailblazers, in the lurch. So I'm a big believer in you can't have it both ways. You either get to sign a deal that pays you $60 million in a single season by the end of the contract, and then you don't get that to demand where you go, or you don't sign that and you have the flexibility to kind of do that. But I don't think you can do both, even though he's been a loyal guy. So their position, I hope that Portland plays it tough and doesn't feel like they owe Damian Lillard that.
It seems like they are playing it tough. Even if you do ultimately think that Damian Lillard ends up in Miami, you've got the GM Joe Cronin out here using the media just like Aaron Goodwin is basically, maybe not so blatantly, but doing the same thing, saying like, hey, we're not satisfied with this. We're willing to wait. In that same report from Adrian Wojnarowski, it was the same thing, was he's willing to dig in and be patient. He's not in a rush to make a deal. He just wants to make the right deal. And this is classic, like, superstar trade playbook stuff, right? Like the star demands the trade.
Listen to yourself, though. Isn't that a little bit sad that this is like
it is?
This is the like go-to play. This is called play number one.
Right. But what's so interesting to me about it, Adam, is how transparent all of it is. It's so just out there, and there's so many things to dig into there. But to your point, it just seems a little. I understand where the frustrations are. The biggest problem here in all of this and why people are so riled up over it is that Damian Lillard's list of preferred destination is one destination long.
Yeah.
And if he just did it like Kevin Durant did and just had two of them, what he's missing is two preferred destinations. The fact that he just has one is the thing that's getting people riled up the most. And I understand it. I get it. They're trying to suppress the market. They're not. And it kind of feels like the Heat are just negotiating against themselves. But to that same point, what team is really out there that should be trading for Damian Lillard that isn't, or feels like they could be, that can't because of Aaron Goodwin? I don't think that anybody, if you were a team, let's call it the Utah Jazz or the Boston Celtics, I don't care. Let's call it the Denver Broncos. If you really wanted to trade for Damian Lillard, if you really, really wanted to do it, you are not going to be afraid just because his agent called you. You're not. And so I don't know. I just don't really see what the other teams are.
Well, sadly, we have precedent for this. I mean, this is from the Kawhi Leonard playbook. He wanted to go to L.A., and he gave two options there as well, right? And just L.A. Well, there's two teams there, so you can pick one.
Guess it works out.
And the Spurs were like, we're not doing that. And Kawhi Leonard, by the way, won them a championship, won a finals MVP. So it wasn't like they didn't owe him anything either. And let me make this clear. I think the Portland Trailblazers do owe Damian Lillard something for his loyalty, and they actually owe him quite a bit. And if he says, I want to go to a contender and I want to have a chance to compete because I wanted to stay here, as long as you are going to be in position to compete. Clearly, they don't have a roster that is anywhere close to that, and we're unable to do that. So I do think that there is, hey, you owe him something. You just can't say one place. And by the way, Wes, what a coincidence that the one place happens to be South Beach again. I mean, this is the thing that me coming from a place like Denver, Well, I mean, come on. It's not like athletes haven't forced their way to Miami in the last decade. It's happened twice already now. But I'm saying when these things happen, it's always Miami. It's always Los Angeles. It's always the same team. So part of me sits here and goes, look, you want a contender, that's respectable. You want to be part of something. The Portland Trailblazers dropped the ball. They owe you this. But you can't force it to one place. The NBA's in a horrible place if that's just the precedent that is now, like you said, out in the open, where we're not even having to be shameful about it. It's just like, yeah, that's what we're doing. What are you gonna do?
It's the craziest thing. Just it's so blatantly out there. I think that's what bothers people. People say they want transparency out of their organizations and the things that they care about, and I'm not sure they do, because this is what transparency looks like. Like, this is it.
Yeah.
Like, even Kawhi was like, yeah, I only want I want to go to LA. But he had an opportunity to go with the Lakers, and he picked the Clippers. For whatever reason, he wanted to go Clippers. Anthony Davis had a whole list of teams on his preferred destinations, but also was like, definitely not Boston. So that was kind of interesting.
Right.
And everybody knew it was the Lakers, and all these other fake destinations
Kevin
were fake.
Durant, hold up. KD and AD, Kevin Durant and Anthony Davis, both did the same thing. And it was like, you could send us anywhere. You could send us to this team that has no interest, this team that has no ability, and this team has no ability, or my one preferred destination. Like, to me, again,
it's all semantics almost. It's just strange. And this is like the most blatantly transparent thing that's been out there, even though it's sort of the same way behind the scenes that it's always been handled. But fans are just like, it's so jarring to just see it out there this open.
And you can imagine how turned off it makes a lot of different fan bases. Obviously, Portland. And look, again,
I get it.
Damian Lillard, I think, has every right to want out. And even though I don't like the idea of signing a 5-year contract and then wanting out after a single season, like I'm uncomfortable with that. In this instance, Portland did fail to build a contender around him.
Yes.
So I do feel like he
didn't sign that contract thinking he was going to leave. He signed that contract fully intending to finish his career in Portland. Right. It's a little bit different than when Anthony Davis signed the big one, or even Bradley Beal signed Bradley Beal. Yeah. And then he's like, also put a no trade clause in there for me.
It's also functionally not different. I do think you're right that it is spiritually different. Like, the intent behind it is very different for these teams, but functionally it's not. And that's my point about, back when player empowerment first began, when this term entered the zeitgeist in the NBA around 2010, the idea was, well, teams will trade you at the first chance they get if it suits their interest. Mm-hmm. Why don't players treat them the same way? And if we're going to say, like, if that's where you want, then we need to swing back the other way and say, hey, then Portland needs to do what's in their own interest, not look out for him. And if you feel it's okay for the player to do this to a team, then the team needs to go back the other way, where they don't consider the player's interest and to say, hey, we're trying to build a contender here. Detroit's got a bunch of draft picks. We're sending you to Detroit. I know you don't want to be there, but hey, this is the deal that works for us.
You could also argue that by Lillard signing the extension, he actually gives Portland more leverage in these trade negotiations. Like, if he never signed that extension, it was an expiring contract after this year. Well, like, then he could just be like, well, I'm not going anywhere that's not Miami, because I'm just not going to resign. At least whatever team trades for him hypothetically would have him under contract for 4 more years. I know it's a little different because the money is different too, but it's like,
it's so much money. But I mean, I guess teams will be willing to pay it. But here's the thing. I think part of why the market might be short anyway is just because Damian Lillard, projecting him 4 years from now is kind of tough to do. And I do think even a team like Miami, Jimmy Butler, Damian Lillard, they're incredible right now. Mm-hmm. How will they be towards the end of that is obviously a risk at the very least. But I'll say this last part. The Spurs and Kawhi are such an interesting example, because Kawhi didn't want to go to the Raptors, but they were a contender. It was, hey, you said you wanted to compete. We'll send you there. And guess what happened? He won a championship and
he left anyway.
That probably wouldn't have happened, by the way, if they would have traded him to the Clippers or Lakers. Like, they would have had to take time to rebuild and this or that.
It was a little bit different. He was coming off the mysterious injury, and that really killed his trade market, because he was being super mysterious about it. Nobody had any idea what to make of it. I want to go back to what you said too about Damian Lillard. We're acting like this was going to be some like huge race to go trade for Damian Lillard, even though before all this stuff happened out in the open here with the public posturing and all of this stuff, there was open questions about, like, would you even trade for Damian Lillard right now? Because he's going to be $63 million when he's 36 years old. How much more time does a small guard have left of his prime? All these things. And all of a sudden we're acting like this is 2010 LeBron and only one team can get him. Like, this isn't even a real race anymore. And it's like, I kind of feel like the Heat were always the logical destination, because they're the only team desperate enough because they have a Jimmy Butler who's aging right now. Like, they're the only team desperate enough to go ahead and take a swing on Damian Lillard now. That's no shot against Damian Lillard. It's just, like you said, a lot of money when he's going to be way older. And it's just like, there's not a whole lot of teams that can stomach that. And Miami's really, like, San Antonio and Utah, like, it sounds nice, but why would they do that? It doesn't really make sense. And even with Boston, you've got young Jason Tatum, young Jaylen Brown. It's like, I don't know. I kind of feel like they should probably get into the Lillard deal, but there's reporting out of Boston that they're not. Philly, yeah, maybe the same thing.
There are teams out there that would throw their hat in the ring if there was not as much uncertainty around it. And maybe that's where I honestly think that's probably where we wind up, is that he ends up in Miami, but only after the team side forces this to open up so that the price raises. Because I think, Wes, it's uncomfortable when star players like a Bradley Beal, like Damian Lillard get traded for so little. It's we all do this before you get into the trade season, where you're like, I wonder what you could, let's go to the trade machine. I wonder if I could get Damian Lillard for Duncan Robinson in 2 seconds. It's like, okay, no, that's a ridiculous trade. And then situations like this arise and you think, how on earth are they not going to lose any of their top 3 guys? And they'll add one of the top guards in all of the NBA. But let me ask you this one, because you cover Miami. If they do pull this off and they don't lose any of their core guys, including Hero, are they favorites in your mind? Does Damian Lillard complete what this team is doing?
I would be surprised if Hero wasn't a part of that trade. It's just a lot of long-term money for Miami to hold on to, and I think they probably want to include Hero in that deal. But regardless of Hero or not, if you have Damian Lillard, Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo, Damian Lillard and Bam Adebayo is basketball heaven. It's the closest thing to Steph and Draymond outside the Bay Area. Like, it's well, and I'll probably outside Denver too, but you know what I mean, functionally, like, or aesthetically kind of similar. But yeah, that team to me is the favorite in the Eastern Conference, especially if they're going to be able to hold on to some of their important pieces, like a Caleb Martin here and you know, things like that there to just round out the rest of the rotation. Yeah, I like that team a lot, especially with the volatility of Philadelphia. You know, Kristaps Porzingis in Boston is really intriguing. It's probably those two. I still think Milwaukee's going to bounce back in a big way. It's still Giannis. I'm not going to doubt them. But yeah, I've got Miami right up there with those guys. No doubt. No doubt. What about you?
I mean, we have to see how they fill out the rest of the roster, what guys step up and you know, how they complete it. But I mean, the big thing I would look at is Miami was a defensive unit, a heck of a defensive unit. And they had some non-defenders out there that, you know, through coaching and through supporting cast and guys like Butler and Bam, they were able to be good defenders. I think Damian Lillard's the second worst defender in the NBA behind Trae Young. He's a really, really bad defender. And I am curious to see. It's like movable object versus stoppable force.
I'm sorry, that sound you just heard is Luka Doncic being like, hold my beer. Did you watch the last 3 weeks of last season? But go ahead.
Well, that might be more of an effort, and that's some different things. But nonetheless, does Miami turn him into an effective defender the way they did with guys like Max Strus, and they've had a history of doing with guys? Or does Damian Lillard, who has lost in playoff series, by the way, to some pretty bad teams recently, is he too bad for those guys to be able to have? I'm actually curious for that. And this is one of the things about Dame's career arc and staying in Portland the way that he did, is now we kind of almost don't know what he looked like in his prime, because his prime, the last 2-3 years of his prime have been a little bit, with a little bit more effort defensively. Can he get better? Like, there wasn't a whole lot of motivation the last couple of years. Right.
2 years ago, he had the abdominal injury that really slowed him down.
Yeah.
Look, the Heat will take a step back defensively with Damian Lillard, but if that comes with the lift offensively, that's a trade that you're willing to take. And lately, as your Denver Nuggets have proved, offense matters more than defense. Offense wins championships, not defense.
And I think it takes both, but you are right that offense is more important than it has been in recent years. Yeah,
the Heat have been really good at having a top 5 defense over the last few years, and it not amounting to a championship. So,
well, it's amounted to Eastern Conference Finals, though,
for sure. And as long as you have Bam, Jimmy, and I think Eric Spoelstra, you're going to be a top 10 defense.
That's a heck of a big three.
It's a heck of a defensive big three for sure. Coming up, have the Suns and Lakers gained ground on the Nuggets? We get Adam's thoughts on that next, but first, a message from our sponsor. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by BetterHelp. Sometimes in life, we're all faced with tough choices, and the path forward isn't always clear. Whether you're dealing with decisions around career, relationships, or anything else, therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate life, so you can move forward with confidence and excitement. Trusting yourself to make decisions that align with your values is like anything. The more you practice, the easier it gets. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to help your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off on your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. All right, we're going to call this the NBA offseason do-nothingers, Adam. So this is a list of the teams that have just done nothing or close to nothing this offseason that we're a little surprised by, probably in most cases, maybe not so surprised by in other cases, and we'll discuss which one of these at the end hurt themselves the most with their inactivity. So we'll start with the first one, the Toronto Raptors. The big thing here is that they lose Fred VanVleet, obviously, to the Houston Rockets. But don't worry, Adam, they replaced him with one Dennis Schroeder. So I'm going to go ahead and chalk that up to a do-nothinger. What did you think about Toronto's offseason, which it doesn't feel like it's over yet? Kind of still feels like maybe there's other pieces that could be on the move. A lot of Pascal Siakam noise lately coming out of Toronto. But your thoughts on the Raptors?
Coming out of Atlanta as well, which I think is part of this. I mean, and then there's, Trae Young had a mysterious one of those. I love the free agency trade season tweets where people do the eyes emojis or the, never get comfortable. I don't remember what he tweeted the other day, but it was something like changes can happen or something like that. Like,
let's go at be uncomfortable so you don't have to get comfortable, or stay uncomfortable so you don't have to get something like that. Like, that's always good. Lillard had one today. He was just, I'm amazed.
I know.
Lillard had. So
I'm sure. Look, man, the Lillard one. I'm sure he's amazed at the commentary around him.
I'm amazed that I got traded for that.
See, to me, it's more like he's seeing everybody get mad at him, and he's like,
yes,
the number one thing he hasn't wanted all these years is for people to get mad at him, and here we are. But
there's no such thing as a smooth divorce. That's what we're learning here.
That's exactly it. With Toronto, they've been in this mode to me in some way since the Kawhi left and went to Los Angeles, where you kind of look and go, okay, those are some good pieces, but is that a team? I don't know if that's like a championship contender. Where are you going? Masai Ujiri, though, he's a little bit like Miami, where he's fine staying good with lots of pieces because he feels he could turn that around quickly. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's what it is. I mean, you still look and they have very good players, Scotty Barnes, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby. Like, they have guys that lots of teams would want. Almost every single team would want those guys. So you're right. I'm going to give them an incomplete, though, before I give them a do nothing.
I agree with you on that.
They might get Damian Lillard.
I was just going to ask you. I was kind of going through it, and I was like, do we want to do this? But you brought it up, so we'll do it. Like, you can't. Could you move Scotty Barnes? Like, could you do that? That's what it would. Would it take? Because Siakam has nothing of any value to Portland. Maybe you can you're doing the third team getting involved, but he's an expiring contract, etc. It's like OG Anunoby. And
you know what? As I'm looking at this, you could. Are you going to win a title there? I don't know, but to me. Again, what did Dame say? I don't want a team too good. I just want a team with a couple.
Well, what if it's just Barnes and you're able to hold on to Anunoby and Siakam? You got those two guys with Dame.
That's a really good
Jakob Poeltl.
Jakob Poeltl's a good defender. So what do you need around Dame? You need defense. You got OG Anunoby, you got Siakam, you got Poeltl. So like that's three really good defenders. Yeah. They're still Gary Trent. Is a great defender when he wants to be. Like they have pieces good there. Shooter. So. To me, why not? Maybe
dark horse Toronto, maybe.
And look, Masai Ujiri, he has been involved in two of these, one on each side. The melodrama, that was all him, similar to the Dame situation. He waited it out. He got a great package. The Kawhi thing, snuck in and stole Kawhi from the whole market. He's the one that ended up with him. So he knows this playbook from both sides, and maybe that is the shocker.
They let VanVleet walk. They only signed Schroeder. Maybe they looked at Schroeder as a backup. I don't know. Put a pin in that. Sacramento Kings, they're a do-nothinger, even though, and I hear you, Sacramento, wait, we just traded for Chris Duarte. Congratulations. You traded for Chris Duarte. I'm still chalking you down as a do-nothinger because you're making all these big moves, creating $30+ million of cap space on draft night, getting rid of your 24th pick, which was a nice player that a lot of guys like. And and you just used it to bring back your own guys. Like, I have no problem like in a vacuum with anything that they did, but like in totality, when you kind of step back, you're like, it's still a little disappointing. You gave Sabonis the extension, which again, in a vacuum, I like. Take care of your guy. Sabonis works for you. Who's your MVP last year? Congrats. Good for you. You brought back Harrison Barnes. I like Harrison Barnes. He's a good player. He's a functional power forward. He works for what they want to do. They didn't get the Draymond Green thing. They didn't really do anything more exciting. In a vacuum, it's a fine move, but it leaves you wanting more for a team that had taken a step last year. You kind of expected them to do something else, and they didn't really do anything else.
So this is one that I think history is going to tell us the answer to, because I think they've had a very uncomfortable arc. And what their arc is that they missed the playoffs, and then they skyrocket up to be the Cinderella team of last year in the regular season. And I think a legitimately good team. If you lose in the first round to a bad team, you might look at that and make shake up like, okay, so what are our core pieces? Let's try something else. We need to get better here and here. They lost to the Warriors. Not sure if the Warriors were a good or bad team. And this is where it's really hard, because I think if you're Sacramento, you go,
right,
they were the defending champs. We lost to them in 7 tough games. We're right there. Let's run it back, which is clearly what they did. But I'm not sure if Golden State was good last year. They lost to the Lakers, and then the Lakers got swept by the Nuggets.
Have we ever really had a year like that where we're like, we watched this team for an entire season, then watched them in extra playoff games, and we come away and we're like, was that team good? We have no idea if that team was good.
Clearly good. Sacramento fans are like getting ready to crash their car listening to this right now. They're clearly good. It's just that you feel this like, how close are we? And it's so hard to know. Unless you're in a conference finals or something and you've gone through all but in the situation they're in, it's just so hard to know, and only time will tell. I suspect that they are probably going to run it back and have almost identical results next year, meaning that they're probably not good enough to really get on, and they're going to find that out. But I don't know.
I don't know how good are they? Are they really the third best team in the Western Conference? That's a fair question to ask. I think they're a playoff team, and I don't know that that's a hot take. I don't. What I will say is we knew what the deficiency was, and it was defense, and you didn't really do anything to help defensively. And I would have liked them to spend some of that money. It's why I penciled in Dylan Brooks for them. I was like, is he a perfect player? No, but he'll help you defensively, and that was the part you needed help with. It was just I wish they would have spent their money somewhere in some way. Look, there's still time. We'll see what happens. NBA do nothing, or number 3, the New Orleans Pelicans. There was a lot of noise around New Orleans. Are they going to trade Zion, Brandon Ingram? What's the future there? All these things. Ultimately, they didn't do anything. They didn't do anything.
My takes are too hot on this one. I mean, let me say this. I love New Orleans roster. I just think they have so many players that are really intriguing.
Are we going to get a Herb Jones reference?
Oh, man, Herb Jones.
It's been a while.
Trey Murphy, Dyson Daniels. Like, look, they've got a bunch of players that I really, really, really like. The Zion situation is the one that hangs over all of this. Like,
it's probably the hold up there.
And so for me, this is so easy for me to say, because what is it if I'm wrong? 1 week I have to come on here and say, oops, my bad. I always thought that the Zion fit was going to be a weird one. Can he play? Is he going to be healthy? Is he the leader that team needs? Does he fit with Brandon Ingram? And maybe you got rid of Brandon Ingram. But you got to build – at some point you have to say, what are we trying to become? And here's what it is. I look at this team and I'm like, I love the talent. I kind of fear that they're just on this treadmill right now where they're not going to be actualizing that talent because of how unpredictable Zion and Ingram both have been at different times. And we just have no idea if that's a dynamic duo that has it in them.
I think if you're a New Orleans fan, or maybe even if you work for the Pelicans, you'll say, before Zion got hurt, we were the number 1 team in the Western Conference. So what do we even talk? All we need is health. I think somebody outside of New Orleans would say, yeah, that's all you needed this entire time. That's your problem, is health of your superstar player. Brandon Ingram, by the way, came along real nice the last 3 or 4 weeks of last season. I thought he actually took a step.
He's really a great player.
I'm interested to see what it looks like when him and Zion share the court again together. What I can't get away from is there's a lot of players, I agree with you, that I like on the roster. It just feels jumbled to me. The whole thing feels a little confused. I don't really know what it is that they're trying to do. And I would have like even if you're healthy, I guess you don't want to make any drastic moves just for the sake of making moves, strip away parts for the sake of stripping away parts. But it just felt like this team needed some sort of tinkering, and they didn't do any tinkering. They literally did nothing, which is why they're on this list. All right, next one. Your Denver Nuggets. It's our final NBA do nothing. This one is understandable considering that they couldn't really do anything, that they were going to try to bring back Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown got $1 billion in Indiana. Good for you, Bruce Brown. Do stuff for the Indiana Pacers, I guess. What are your thoughts on the Denver Nuggets and the fact that they weren't really able to do much? And did they even have to do anything considering that they're the defending champs?
16-4. They went, let's see, 10-1 to end the season. Right. Sweep of the Western Conference Finals, and then a 5-gamer against the Heat in the finals. Let's see what else. Their starting 5 was the best in the NBA, and it returns. And they do get back their 7th man, not their 6th. Were they right to do nothing? Yeah, I think it's okay. You know what? I think it's pretty good. The starters are there. Your key guys are there. The continuity is there, by the way. And the guys that are replacing – here's the thing. I don't think you were finding another Bruce Brown, especially with the new CBA. Like, Denver's
not in the minimum.
Yeah. I think the only guys you could look at is you could say, could you have replaced Bruce Brown with a Patrick Beverley or a Seth Curry or one of those players, which is, first of all, a name. Like, you know, they would show up in the poster more so than, say, Peyton Watson, who hasn't quite played in the NBA yet, or Zeke Naji, whose name doesn't reek out. But at the same time, are those guys better fits for what Denver's doing? I'm not so sure they are. So for me, Denver returned the 5 guys that mattered the most. They lost one guy that did matter, but I think that it's probably going to be overstated for a team that went 16-4 and walked to an NBA championship.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the Heat put up a fight. Just want to throw that in there because I have to. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the idea also is that Christian Brown and Peyton Watson are ready to maybe take a second-year leap and replace some of what Bruce Brown did. That would be the idea there.
I think, Christian Brown is proven. So with him, he's a very good defender. Peyton Watson has not played. So he's effectively a redshirt rookie.
Why couldn't they go out and get a legit backup center on the minimum? I mean, maybe they still could, but.
Well, I'll tell you why. So they did. They have Reggie Jackson, who is a veteran point guard for a backup. And then you have Justin Holiday, who is, again, a veteran small forward. And then they have DeAndre Jordan, who's a veteran center. So they sort of have a built-in safety option that they think they are hoping they're not going to play. The reason Denver went this route, Calvin Booth really believes in Peyton Watson, a guy who's a 5-star out of Los Angeles 2 years ago, fell in the draft, was taken 30th, and then basically used last year as a redshirt year to get ready. Calvin Booth just believes that he is a guy that is going to fill Bruce Brown's role and be an impact player. They also have a couple draft picks this year that they think have a chance to break into that rotation as well over a Reggie Jackson should it be needed. And then they have Zeke Naji, who played really well over the last few seasons, except for he always gets hurt. So I think Denver has guys that are unproven, but Calvin Booth is just betting on his knowledge of this team behind the scenes that those guys are ready to step up. It's a gamble. I'm not sure I buy it, but at least that's the rationale.
I'll ask you the question then. The Suns had a great offseason. The Lakers have had a great free agency. How much have they closed the gap in your mind?
I mean, the reason I don't think much. They were good teams before, like they were within strike. You just mentioned, Miami put up a heat. I mean, the Lakers lost in 4, but they're still had
they're competitive games.
They're competitive or what have you. And Phoenix, the only thing I'll say is I kind of disagree about how good of an offseason both of those teams had. LA, I think it's easier to disagree with because some of the players they brought in, they already got the Lakers bump, right? Some of the
they're being graded on a curve because it was not that long ago that they traded some of their best role players for Russell Westbrook. So it's like, hey, you didn't do that. You won the offseason.
Well, like whenever I see Jackson Hayes on the list of like, oh, what an upgrade, I'm like, Yoke's doesn't.
Who's going to stop? Hayes. Who's going to stop this 5?
Yeah.
Anthony Davis, LeBron, and Jackson Hayes.
Like, Jokic doesn't see Jackson Hayes. Come on, guys. Like, come on, get out of here. But then you look at the Phoenix Suns, and it's just a matter of, they got another guy that does the thing that they do. And does that help? I'm a little more skeptical of it. I just think in today's NBA, you got to be able to do a lot of different things. And Phoenix is really good, one of the best of all time at one thing. But a similar mold happened in Brooklyn. Similar molds have happened before, and they just don't have the versatility or defense to get it done. So I doubt Phoenix. And like I said, Denver starting 5, they're still there. Okay, I'm still in.
I think we have a pretty clear top 3 in the West with those 3. But I would still, but I don't know. Am I forgetting somebody? I don't think. Oh, the Warriors added Chris Paul. I want to pump the brakes on the Lakers. Like the Lakers were a play-in team that played very well in the playoffs in a short moment. After they traded Westbrook and got this, I think this is a good team. I think this is a good team.
Look, Anthony Davis and LeBron's health. LeBron in
Sure.
particular is not getting any better. I thought the timing of his year worked out perfectly for him and that he was healthy at the right moment. And just counting on that again.
Is there another scoring record for him to break? No, that was the top one.
This is the Chris Paul thing, right? We always would talk about, is Chris Paul really going to be healthy? And, 1 year he is, and everyone says, see it. It's like, well, probably won't happen 2 years in a row. Sure enough, it hasn't. And so it's just one of those things. I don't want to be that guy, but with the Lakers, they're a lot less proven to me at this moment, even though they went to the conference finals and ended up getting swept.
I still have the Nuggets as my betting favorite, at least in the Western Conference. It'll be really interesting. Coming up, is Victor Wembanyama's Summer League debut so interesting that it's must-see TV? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On NBA. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Las Vegas Summer League tips off tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We got Spurs and Hornets. That means it's featuring the top 2 picks, Victor Wembanyama and Brandon Miller on ESPN. Adam, is this must-see TV tonight? I mean, you'll be there, so it's not TV for you. What do you want to see tonight?
For me, it is. I don't know if it is for the average person. I will say this. It happens every year, Wes. Without fail, I get so excited for these games. And like 6 minutes in, I'm like, man, this isn't even really basketball. What am I watching? I will say that there is a few exceptions to that rule. Deep three-point shooters, really quick guards that have like great handle. I think Kyrie or, this kind of Cam Thomas had a little bit of this going last year, great handle, deep three-point shooting. Okay, it's fun.
Yeah.
And then freak athletes, and I'm going to put Zion Williamson. I remember Zion Williamson ripping the ball. I can't remember who it was. He ripped the ball out of their hands. Very, very, like, first play, and you just think this guy's a different caliber athlete.
I was there too. And then there was an earthquake right after that.
There was an earthquake. You're right.
Like immediately after that. And then also later that night, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard were sent to got onto the Clippers.
All-time night.
Wild night in Las Vegas.
But I'm going to count Victor Wembanyama in this. I mean, look, the guy's 7'4", maybe taller. He might be a rare instance of a guy going shorter than he actually is. He's 7'4". I just think he's going to be must-see TV because he's such a unique and different prospect. So absolutely, I'm tuned in. And if you're a basketball fan, I think you want to be tuned in as well.
He shows out for Las Vegas too. This is the 3rd time he's played in Vegas over the last 12 months, right? So this is his thing. Always exciting also. They always do this in Vegas Summer League. Like one of the first games, the first primetime game really is the number 1 pick versus the number 2 pick. So that's going to be fun too. But no disrespect to Brandon Miller. He's probably going to be a great player, but everybody's going to be there to see Wemby. And I'm very excited too. Let's get to our countdown. What do you have for us?
We're going to look at it's not really a countdown. It's more of I'm going to ask you, Summer League, how predictive is it for future success? I'm going to give you a player, and you're going to tell me, did they or did they not win Summer League MVP?
Oh, my God. Michael Jordan.
We're going to start with Chris Dunn. Chris Dunn.
Wow, this is a tough one. This feels like a trick one right off the bat. How would you even come up with Chris Dunn's name if he's not on this list? So I'm going to say, yeah, he was.
Unfortunately not. I do remember him being absolutely dominant in Summer League and thinking like, this is a player, man. Look at this guy. He's unbelievable.
You know who my guy is like that more recently? Yeah, maybe more recently, maybe like a year or two. Anthony Simons. I saw him in Summer League, and I was like, this guy's going to be legit. He's good. No, he's good. $20 million.
Hey, you know what he has?
A contract. Oh,
Deep
and a handle.
shooting.
That's what he was in the small gym too, and those guys always look better in the small gym.
Yeah, you're right. That small gym, they look so fast, so big because it's so tiny. All right, number 2, Anthony Davis.
No,
he did not win. All right, next one, Tyus Jones.
Yes, this one I know. He won Summer League MVP.
He sure did. Back in 2016, he was your Summer League MVP. Handle.
Yeah, not deep three, not that quick, but handle.
Jahlil Okafor.
That was back in the day where big men could still win Summer League MVP. He wasn't taken so high that he would be shut down the way AD got shut down. Yeah, was he?
He was not. I'm sorry, not even Summer League MVP.
You're coming up with some good names, man. Like this is like, all right.
I was trying to think of guys that you could really fall for here. All right, Nate Robinson.
No, he didn't. Come on.
Nate Robinson did, in fact,
so bad
win
at this game. Wow.
NBA Summer
Really?
League. Again, what does he have? Handle, shooting,
Guy probably
and
dunked once.
athleticism. He's got it all.
Guy dunked once and was like, that guy, he's so short. And then
He's
just
so
won
short. Look at him. Michael Carter Williams.
That's like Marcus Smart winning Defensive Player of the Year. He's so short. We should just give it to him. Michael Carter Williams. I want to say yes, but I've been wrong on everything. I'm going to just say no because he won Rookie of the Year. I'm going to say no.
The answer is no. I feel like I came up with. I really like the names I came up with.
I pulled the Costanza. Right there.
You do the opposite of what you think. Yeah, Michael Carter Williams. It does feel like he won Summer League, but that was actually, in fact, Rookie of the Year, which is wild in and of itself. And then the last one, LaMelo Ball.
No.
He did not. Cam Thomas won it his year.
That's right.
Did. And LaMelo Ball's brother, Lonzo Ball, also won it. I think the first time I remember Summer League being sold out, Lonzo Ball playing in Jason Tatum, Lakers Celtics Summer League game. And I remember Jason Tatum walking out onto the court and the whole crowd booing and him not realizing it was for him.
That's great.
Then he looks around and he's like, oh, me? And it's like, oh, God. Oh, okay.
Congrats. You're on the Celtics. This is what happens. This one is sold out for Wembanyama. I learned that today. It is sold out for Wembanyama. If anybody listening scored
tickets, I got to buy some tickets. Okay.
If anybody listening scored 100% on that test, I say this with all due respect, get a life. Like there's no reason that you should have gotten 100% on that test.
The Thompson twins might have got it. Have you seen them doing trivia? Unbelievable.
Yeah. They're great. They probably just, quiz each other with index cards. Whatever. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Everydayers, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, Odyssey, and wherever you get your podcasts. The show's going to be back on Monday with the biggest stories from the NBA weekend. In the meantime, you can find me over on Locked On Heat and Adam over on Locked On Nuggets. Have a great weekend.